Hello everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at this. It's the Dungeon Master faction, and we're going to learn how that works and what it means if Dungeon Master is set as your primary faction. So let's get into it. So the special ability of the Dungeon Master faction is that you have this one unit called the Dungeon Master. You can only have one in each deck, and that unit will start in play at the start of the game. So when you draw your opening hand, normally you draw 6 cards. In this case, you'll draw 5, and you'll be able to choose from those and work out if you want to mulligan. But then, on top of that, after you start the game, your Dungeon Master will suddenly appear on the table in front of you as a unit. You'll notice that the Dungeon Master has the same amount of health as you do, and that's because they're the same thing. If your Dungeon Master takes damage, you're taking damage. If you take direct damage, that damage will be reflected in lowering your Dungeon Master's health as well. Now, there are 3 main Dungeon Masters. Firstly, we have Zarathrix Arcanist Supreme, who is all about giving you mastery and making your spells more powerful. And then we have Sir Laurentier, the Enchanted Lich. He's going to steal health from your own units, but if he ever kills something, he's going to give that power back to one of your units randomly. And then we have the Gunhaunt, who is a gun specialist, so they have ranged weapons, and also they're able to bring creatures back from the dead. Now, the Dungeon Master works like a unit for most of the game. It will take up one of your 10 slots that you have for the amount of units you can have in play, and it attacks and defends just like other units. However, some cards will have the words creature, and when we're talking about a creature, that's anything that isn't a Dungeon Master. So for example, you can't play Book of Ancient Arts to increase the attack of Zarathrix and give him an extra mastery. That has to go on a creature, not on a Dungeon Master. Because you're choosing Dungeon Master as your primary faction, that also means you can take a lot of Dungeon Master cards. Your secondary faction is always limited at 10 cards at most. So if you're taking Dungeon Master as your primary faction, here are some of the unique tools that they can take advantage of. Firstly, we have Mastery. Mastery only exists in the Dungeon Master faction at the moment, and it lets you increase the damage of the first spell you play each turn. Then we have a sacrifice and graveyard mechanics. So there's quite a few cards where you can sacrifice one of your units in order to gain a benefit. That could be to sacrifice a unit to summon some skeletons. It could be to sacrifice a unit to draw some cards. There's a few different things that work with that. And then also, you can take advantage of your discard pile with cards like Necromancy, which will let you bring a card from your discard pile back into play. And the last thing that's unique to the Dungeon Master faction is undead as a keyword. Now, there is a card that is neutral, that is also undead, but for the most part, all of the tools you're going to use around undead, and if you want to build an undead style deck, then you're going to have to go with the Dungeon Master faction. Firstly, the bone amalgamates that a lot of the creatures will create that get stronger the more you have in your graveyard. They're undead themselves. And there's a few other cards which work off of undeads dying or other things that undeads do. For example, Dreaded Corpse Flinger. When a friendly undead creature dies, you deal 1 direct damage. So it's a good way to get some extra damage in for free. So that is everything there is to know about the Dungeon Master faction. Look forward to seeing you in the next one, where we'll be covering how MRA works. See ya.